The stench of plasma burns and alien disinfectant filled Raymond Turner's nostrils as he stood in the holding cell beneath the Corvani Grand Arena. For nearly 3 months, he had survived in this hellish place, outlasting all the other human captives who'd been brought here with him after their transport vessel was captured. 3 months of fighting, bleeding, and somehow staying alive, when most humans lasted less than 5 matches. Ray ran calloused fingers over his bare torso, tracing the network of scars that mapped his journey in this place. His once powerful frame had grown leaner, whittled down by inadequate rations and relentless combat. But beneath the gauntness lay cords of hardened muscle and battle-honed reflexes. His dark hair had grown shaggy, and his gray eyes held the haunted look of a man who had seen too much death. The ambient noise of the arena swelled above him. 40,000 Corvani spectators filling the massive domed coliseum that had become his world. The betting boards flashed odds in their alien script. Ray had learned enough to know that the numbers were rarely in his favor. Yet somehow, he kept beating those odds. A low hum signaled the approach of the transport platform. Ray drew a deep breath and mentally prepared himself. Dreams of Earth, green hills, blue skies, the life he once had, flickered in his mind like a dying ember. Those dreams were what kept him going, what made him fight when it would be easier to surrender to the inevitable. "Human," a guttural voice announced through the translator. "Prepare for transport to the arena floor." The force field dissolved, and 2 Corvani guards gestured with their energy prods. Ray stepped onto the hovering platform without resistance. No point in fighting here. He'd save his strength for the arena. As the platform began its ascent through the tubular shaft toward the arena floor, the thunderous roar of the crowd grew louder. A holographic announcement boomed across the dome, and even with his limited grasp of the Corvani language, Ray understood the gist. Tonight was special. Tonight was a main event. "Citizens of the glorious Corvani hegemony." Arena. Master Vorak's voice boomed in both Corvani and translated English. "Tonight's main attraction features human specimen RT-73 against our elite mech pilot, Captain Sarissa Vorthan." The crowd's roar intensified. Ray's stomach tightened. A mech pilot. They were throwing him against a battle machine. His previous opponents had been fearsome enough, Corvani warriors with their scaled skin and enhanced strength. But a mech was something else entirely. 20 feet of weaponized destruction. Ray's platform locked into place at the center of the vast circular fighting ground. The ceramic floor beneath his bare feet was pitted with scorch marks from countless battles. Around him, the tiered seating rose like a mountain of bodies, filled with blue-skinned Corvani spectators, their crimson eyes gleaming with anticipation. In an elevated box draped with ornate banners, Arena Master Vorak sat enthroned among his elite guards. His scaled skin was a deep purple-black, almost iridescent under the arena lights, and his silver-white hair, the mark of Corvani nobility, was elaborately styled. He smiled cruelly as he gazed down at Ray, revealing rows of sharp teeth. At the opposite end of the arena, a massive door slid open with a hydraulic hiss. The crowd fell hushed as a battle mech stepped through, each footfall sending tremors through the floor. It stood nearly 20 feet tall, gleaming with polished chrome and matte black armor. Plasma cannons were mounted on both arms, and its movements were eerily fluid for something so massive. Through the transparent aluminum of the cockpit canopy, Ray caught a glimpse of his opponent, Captain Sarissa Vorthan. Her skin was a pale blue, typical of Corvani nobility, and her silver-white hair was pulled back in a tight military style. She hung suspended in her control harness, her crimson eyes fixed on him with predatory focus. As his platform disengaged its force field, Ray stepped onto the battle floor. He was weaponless, wearing only the thin, reinforced fabric shorts provided to gladiators. The absurdity of the matchup wasn't lost on him, a half-starved human against a war machine. Behind him, he heard the Corvani spectators making wagers, their translator units carrying snippets of conversation to his ears. 2 minutes, at most. I give him 30 seconds before she vaporizes him. Has a human ever survived against a mech? Ray clenched his fists. In the quiet of his mind, he made a silent vow. If I die tonight, I'll take that bitch's mech with me. The arena horn blared, signaling the start of combat. Sarissa wasted no time. The mech's right arm rose, and a bolt of blue plasma erupted from the cannon. Ray dove to the side, feeling the heat sear past him as the bolt struck the floor where he'd been standing, leaving a smoking crater. The crowd roared its approval. Ray rolled to his feet and began circling. 3 months of fighting Corvani had taught him to study his opponents, to look for patterns and weaknesses. Mech suits were different from organic fighters, but they still had vulnerabilities, joints, hydraulic lines, cooling vents. He just needed to get close enough to exploit them. Sarissa fired again, tracking his movement with remarkable precision. Ray feinted left, then darted right, the plasma bolt missing him by inches. He could feel the superheated air blistering his skin. Stand still, human, Sarissa's amplified voice taunted in accented English. I promise to make it quick. Ray didn't waste breath on a reply. Instead, he analyzed the mech's gait, noting how it shifted its weight before each step. There was a slight delay in the left leg's hydraulic response, barely perceptible. But there. Another plasma bolt forced him into a diving roll. He came up beside a chunk of debris from a previous battle and hefted it. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. The mech stalked toward him, its massive feet leaving imprints in the ceramic floor. Ray waited until it was committed to a step, then hurled the debris at the cockpit canopy, not to damage it, but as a distraction. As expected, Sarissa's reflexes triggered a defensive arm movement, momentarily taking her attention off Ray's position. He used that split second to dart in close, diving beneath the mech's guard and rolling up against its left leg. Up close, the machine was even more imposing. Heat radiated from its power core, and the smell of ozone and machine oil filled Ray's nostrils. He could hear the whir of servos and the hiss of hydraulic pistons. Without hesitation, Ray drove his fist into the seam where the leg armor met the main body housing. His knuckles connected with a bundle of cables, and he yanked with all his strength. Sparks showered over him, scorching his shoulders, but he maintained his grip. Metal groaned. The mech's leg buckled slightly. The crowd went silent, then erupted in shock. Ray rolled away as the mech tried to swat at him, its movements now hampered by the damaged left leg actuator. He circled around to the back, looking for another opening. The mech pivoted awkwardly to track him, its damaged leg causing it to list to one side. Sarissa fired again, but the mech's instability threw off her aim. The plasma bolt struck a section of the arena wall, sending fragments of ceramic flying. Ray seized his chance. He sprinted forward and leaped, using the mech's damaged leg as a springboard. His fingers found purchase on a maintenance handle, and he hauled himself up the side of the metal giant. Sparks and steam erupted around him as the mech's defensive systems activated, trying to shake him off or burn him away. Pain lanced through his palms as the metal superheated, but Ray maintained his grip. He climbed higher, working his way toward the cockpit. Through the transparent canopy, he locked eyes with Sarissa. For a heartbeat, the arena's noise seemed to drop away. Ray saw something unexpected in those crimson eyes. Not just the cold calculation of a warrior, but curiosity. Perhaps even a grudging respect. The moment shattered as the mech slammed its back against the arena wall, trying to crush Ray. He barely managed to swing around to the side, maintaining his hold by his fingertips. The impact sent shockwaves of pain through his shoulders and spine. Gritting his teeth, Ray climbed higher. He reached the junction where the mech's right arm connected to the torso, another potential weak point. With all his strength, he drove his elbow into the seam, feeling something give way beneath the impact. More sparks erupted, and the right arm's plasma cannon powered down, its energy conduits disrupted. The crowd's roar became a cacophony of disbelief. The mech staggered, trying to compensate for the damaged leg and the malfunctioning arm. Ray continued his ascent, now just below the cockpit. Sarissa was frantically working her controls, trying to shake him off or bring auxiliary systems online. Ray spotted what he was looking for: the manual cockpit release, standard emergency feature on Corvani mechs. If his observations from previous arena fights were correct, he stretched out his hand and found the pneumatic lock. With a powerful yank, he disengaged it. The canopy seal broke with a hiss of escaping air. Ray pulled himself up to eye level with Sarissa, his scarred face just inches from hers, separated only by the transparent barrier. Her hand hovered over what he assumed was the ejection switch. "Surrender," Ray said quietly, his voice barely audible over the mech's struggling systems. Their eyes locked again. Something passed between them, an unspoken communication that transcended their roles as predator and prey. Slowly, deliberately, Sarissa's hand moved away from the ejection control. The cockpit canopy slid open. Captain Sarissa Vorthan, elite Corvani mech pilot, raised her hands in surrender. The arena exploded in chaos. 40,000 voices raised in shock, disbelief, outrage. Never before had a human gladiator lasted more than 5 minutes against a battle-rated mech, much less forced its pilot to surrender. Sarissa unhooked herself from her control harness and climbed down from the cockpit with fluid grace. She stood beside her damaged mech, hands still raised. Up close, Ray could see that she was tall and slender, her Corvani physiology evident in her blue-tinged skin and slightly elongated proportions. Her flight suit was form-fitting black material, emblazoned with military insignia. "You fight as though you've studied our machines for years," she said, her English precise but accented. Before Ray could respond, arena security flooded the floor, energy weapons trained on both of them. The crowd continued its cacophony of shouting, some calling for Ray's execution, others demanding explanations. Arena Master Vorak's voice boomed over the chaos. "The human victor will be returned to holding. Captain Vorthan, report to command immediately." 4 guards surrounded Ray, prodding him toward the exit platform. As he was led away, he glanced back at Sarissa. She was watching him, her expression unreadable, but her crimson eyes seemed to hold a promise. This isn't over. The medical bay was stark and clinical, illuminated by harsh fluorescent lighting that made the metal surfaces gleam. Ray sat on an examination table, his plasma burns being treated by an automated medical drone. He'd been surprised when, instead of returning him to his holding cell, the guards had brought him here. His surprise doubled when the door slid open and Sarissa walked in. She had changed from her flight suit into a more casual uniform, though her military bearing remained evident in her posture. She dismissed the guards with a curt gesture, and they withdrew, leaving her alone with Ray. "Your injuries require proper treatment," she said, approaching a control panel and adjusting the medical drone settings. "The autodock is programmed for Corvani physiology. It would have left scarring." Ray watched her warily. "Why are you helping me?" Sarissa was silent for a moment, focusing on the controls. When she turned to face him, her expression was troubled. "You weren't supposed to win today," she said finally. "No human has ever dismantled a T-7 battle mech with their bare hands. It's unprecedented." "Sorry to disappoint," Ray replied dryly. A ghost of a smile touched Sarissa's lips. "On the contrary, your performance was remarkable." She stepped closer, examining the burns on his shoulders. "These need dermal regeneration. Hold still." She applied a cool gel to the worst of the burns. Ray noticed a floral undertone to her scent, something unexpected amidst the antiseptic smell of the medical bay. "Why did you surrender?" he asked. "You could have ejected, self-destructed the mech, Plenty of ways to avoid losing to a human. Sarissa's hands paused in their work. Perhaps I was curious. Or perhaps I recognized that continuing would have been dishonorable. She met his gaze directly. You earned your victory, Raymond Turner. He blinked in surprise at hearing his full name. You know who I am. Of course. We keep detailed records on all combatants. She resumed treating his wounds. Former Earth Special Forces, captured during a reconnaissance mission near the hegemony border. Unusual combat aptitude and survival rate. Ray tensed. If you know so much about me, then you know I'm not supposed to be here. My ship was in neutral territory when it was attacked. Sarissa's expression darkened. There are many things happening that aren't supposed to be. She lowered her voice. This arena isn't just sport. It's data collection, genetic research, breeding experiments. Ray felt his blood run cold. What are you talking about? Instead of answering directly, Sarissa finished treating his burns, then gestured for him to follow her. I need to show you something. She led him to a side door that opened into a maintenance corridor, a narrow passage lined with pipes and conduits, lit by intermittent safety lights. The air was thick with moisture, condensation dripping from overhead pipes. Where are we going? Ray asked, keeping his voice low. Somewhere we shouldn't be, Sarissa replied. She produced a small device from her pocket and activated it. Privacy screen. It will disrupt surveillance for a short radius around us. They moved through a labyrinth of service tunnels, descending deeper beneath the arena. Ray memorized their path, noting potential escape routes and choke points, habits ingrained by years of military training. Eventually, they reached a ventilation duct that overlooked a large chamber below. Sarissa gestured for Ray to look through the slats. What he saw made his stomach turn. The chamber was a laboratory, clinically white and sterile. Rows of examination tables filled the space, each occupied by a human, strapped down with restraints. Medical drones moved between the tables, extracting samples, blood, tissue, genetic material. Holographic displays above each table showed scrolling data, compatibility rates, genetic markers, hybrid viability. Corvani scientists in white garb moved through the room, examining results and making notes. At the center of it all stood a surgical station where a Corvani doctor was methodically dissecting what appeared to be a failed hybrid experiment. Part human, part Corvani. Ray fought back bile. What the hell is this? The real purpose of the arena, Sarissa whispered. Vorak doesn't just want entertainment. He wants to create a new species, Corvani strength and regenerative abilities with human adaptability and endurance. The perfect soldiers. And the matches, the gladiatorial games? Data collection, testing human limits, identifying the strongest specimens. Her voice was tight with disgust. Those who perform well are harvested. Those who don't are disposed of. Ray's mind raced back to the other humans who had arrived with him. Most had disappeared after losing their matches. He'd assumed they'd been executed or sent to labor camps. The truth was far worse. Why are you showing me this? He asked, his voice hoarse. Sarissa's crimson eyes met his. Because I need your help to stop it. She guided him away from the ventilation duct, back through the maintenance tunnels. As they walked, she explained in hushed tones that she belonged to a covert faction called the Truth Seekers, Corvani dissidents, who opposed Vorak's unethical programs and believed in peaceful coexistence with other species. Vorak's experiments violate our most sacred laws, she said. But he has the protection of powerful figures in the hegemony who want his hybrid soldiers. My faction has been gathering evidence, but we need a way to expose him publicly, where his protectors can't cover it up. They emerged from the tunnels into what appeared to be private quarters. Sarissa's, Ray presumed. The space was a stark contrast to the grim tunnels and laboratories below. Clean lines, minimalist furniture, and a panoramic window overlooking the Corvani capital city. Spires of crystal and metal rose into a purple-tinged sky, illuminated by the glow of artificial light. "This is what Corvani society appears to be," Sarissa said, gesturing to the view. "Advanced, cultured, but that veneer masks the atrocities beneath." She activated a secure communications terminal. After a series of encryption protocols, a face appeared on the screen. Another Corvani, older, with deep blue skin and eyes that seemed almost silver. "Keleth," Sarissa greeted. "I've brought him." The Corvani studied Ray with interest. "The human who defeated your mech with his bare hands. Impressive." His English was flawless. "Can he be trusted?" "He has more reason than most to want Vorak stopped," Sarissa replied. Ray stepped forward. "If you're fighting against what I just saw in that lab, I'm in, but I need to know the plan." Keleth nodded. "Direct. Good." He tapped something off-screen, and a holographic schematic appeared beside the communication terminal. "Vorak has scheduled another match for you in 2 days. A rematch against Sarissa to restore Corvani honor. The broadcast will reach 3 star systems." "He wants me dead," Ray concluded. "Precisely," Keleth agreed. "But we can use this opportunity. The arena's security networks are linked to the broadcast systems. If we can access the central hub during the match, we can overlay the transmission with footage from the laboratories." "Exposing everything to 3 star systems simultaneously," Sarissa added, "including hegemony diplomats who will be in attendance." Ray considered the implications. "I assume the security hub is well protected." "Heavily," Keleth confirmed. "But during a main event, most guards will be focused on the arena floor. Sarissa can create a diversion with her mech, while you infiltrate the security levels through maintenance access." "I'll be carrying a hacking module," Sarissa explained, "concealed in your arm guard. Once you reach the hub, it will auto-connect and begin the upload. 2 minutes is all we need." Ray studied the schematic, memorizing entry points and potential escape routes. "If this works, what happens afterward? To the humans in the labs? To you?" He looked at Sarissa. Keleth answered. "We have resistance cells ready to move once Vorak is exposed. We'll secure the facility, free the prisoners." He paused. "As for Sarissa, her position will be compromised. She'll need to disappear." Ray turned to Sarissa. "You're risking everything." "As are you," she replied quietly. "If we fail, Vorak will ensure your death is particularly unpleasant." A moment of silence passed between them, heavy with the weight of what they were planning. Keleth cleared his throat. "I'll send the final details through secure channels. Be ready." The communication ended, leaving Ray and Sarissa alone. She moved to a cabinet and removed a slender bottle containing pale blue liquid. "Corvani tradition," she explained, pouring 2 small glasses. "Before undertaking a dangerous mission together, allies share a drink." She offered a glass to Ray. The liquid gave off a subtle aroma, like flowers and spice. Alien, but not unpleasant. "To success," she said, raising her glass. Ray mirrored the gesture. "To bringing down Vorak." They drank. The liquid burned pleasantly down Ray's throat, leaving a lingering warmth in his chest. Sarissa set her glass down, her expression solemn. "Raymond, there's something else you should know. If we succeed, if Vorak falls, it won't just be his regime that suffers. My people will face a reckoning with what we've allowed to happen. The hegemony may fracture. There will be chaos before there's peace." Ray nodded slowly. "Sometimes, systems need to break before they can be rebuilt better. That's what I believe as well." She stepped closer to him, her crimson eyes searching his face. "But I need to be certain you understand what we're risking. Not just our lives, but the future of both our species." Ray thought of the humans strapped to tables in the laboratory, of the countless gladiators who had died in the arena, of his own 3 months of fighting for survival. "I understand," he said, "and I'm in—" Sarissa's expression softened. In a gesture that surprised him, She reached out and placed her hand against his cheek, her skin cool against his. Then we stand together. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither had expected to find in this place of cruelty and death. Then, with gentle deliberation, Sarissa leaned forward and pressed her lips to his, a kiss that bridged the divide between their species and sealed their alliance with something deeper than words. When they parted, Ray saw in her eyes the same determination that burned in his own. Whatever came next, they would face it united by a shared purpose, to bring light to the darkness beneath the arena. The arena looked different from Ray's new perspective. No longer just a killing floor. It was now the stage for a revolution. 40,000 spectators filled the tiered seating, their roars echoing off the dome ceiling. Betting boards flashed with odds heavily favoring Sarissa, the Corvani military hero seeking redemption against the human who had humiliated her. In his private box, Arena Master Vorak sat surrounded by hegemony diplomats and military officials, his scaled face set in a mask of anticipation. He had no idea what was about to unfold. Ray stood at the center of the arena floor, his body tensed for what was to come. He wore the same, sparse gladiatorial outfit, but now his arm guard concealed the hacking module Sarissa had provided. His mind replayed the plan they had meticulously developed over the past 2 days. Across the arena, the massive doors parted, and Sarissa's mech stepped through. It looked even more imposing than before, freshly repaired and upgraded with additional weaponry. The crowd erupted in cheers as the 20-foot war machine strode toward the center, each step sending tremors through the floor. Through the transparent cockpit canopy, Ray could see Sarissa, her face a perfect mask of determined vengeance. Only he knew the truth, that her mech had been reconfigured to fire elaborate but deliberately non-lethal shots, creating a spectacular show while allowing him to slip away unnoticed. The arena horn blared, signaling the start of combat. Immediately, Sarissa's mech opened fire, plasma bolts striking the ground near Ray in a choreographed pattern. He dove and rolled, playing his part in their deadly dance. The crowd roared its approval, unaware that each near miss was precisely calculated. "For Corvani honor!" Sarissa's amplified voice boomed across the arena, the prearranged signal that security was focused on their battle. Ray feinted to the left, then sprinted toward the mech as if attempting the same strategy as before. This time, however, as he reached the massive machine, he rolled beneath it and disappeared into a maintenance hatch that Sarissa had positioned her mech to conceal. Above, Sarissa continued firing, creating a smokescreen of plasma explosions and debris that kept all eyes focused upward. Her mech pivoted dramatically, as if searching for the vanished human. Ray dropped into the narrow maintenance tunnel beneath the arena floor. The air was hot and thick with the smell of ozone and hydraulic fluid. He oriented himself quickly, recalling the schematic Keleth had shown him. The security hub was 3 levels down, accessed through a series of service corridors designed for drone maintenance. He sprinted through the dimly lit passage, counting junctions. Left at the 3rd intersection, down a ladder shaft, through a pressure door. Every second counted. Behind him, muffled by layers of ceramic and metal, he could hear the continued chaos of the arena battle. Sarissa would be engaging the elite guards by now, drawing them away from his path. Ray reached a sealed door marked with Corvani security symbols. Using the molecular cutter concealed in his glove, the same tool Sarissa had provided for their escape through the ventilation system, he sliced through the locking mechanism. The door slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Beyond lay the security hub, a circular chamber filled with holographic displays and data terminals. The central console pulsed with streams of information: arena surveillance, crowd analytics, betting algorithms. Ray moved swiftly to the main terminal. He activated the hacking module embedded in his arm guard, placing it against the interface panel. Immediately, the device began to interface with the Corvani system. bypassing security protocols and establishing a connection to the broadcast network. On the screens surrounding him, Ray could see multiple camera feeds from the arena above. Sarissa's mech was now engaged with a squad of security forces, led by a heavily armored Corvani, Captain Bruthen, the elite guard commander. She fired precision shots that disabled their weapons without causing fatal injuries, maintaining the illusion of a legitimate battle while avoiding unnecessary bloodshed. The hacking module beeped softly, indicating it had penetrated the first layer of security. A progress indicator appeared on the nearest screen, 10% complete. Ray's attention was drawn to a flashing alert on another monitor. Security drones had detected the unauthorized access. He had minutes, perhaps seconds, before guards would arrive. 25% complete. A new window opened on the main screen, displaying the hidden footage Kelleth had compiled. Humans strapped to laboratory tables. Corvani scientists extracting samples. Failed hybrid experiments. The raw evidence of Vorax atrocities. 40% complete? Ray heard the distant sound of boots in the corridor. Guards approaching. He glanced around the hub, looking for defensive options. A control panel near the door caught his eye. Environmental systems. He slammed his palm against the emergency shutdown, triggering a power surge that temporarily disabled the corridor's lighting and security doors. Muffled curses in Corvani filtered through the door as the guards found themselves trapped in darkness. 60% complete. On the arena feeds, Ray saw that Bruthen had cornered Sarissa's mech against the eastern wall. The elite guard captain was no fool. He seemed suspicious of the mech's non-lethal tactics. His squad surrounded Sarissa, plasma rifles charged. 75% complete. Ray's heart pounded against his ribs. They needed more time. He accessed the hub's communication array and patched into Sarissa's mech frequency. "Almost there," he said urgently. 80%. Need another minute." "Understood," came her terse reply, followed by the sound of her mech's auxiliary systems powering up. On the screen, Ray watched as Sarissa activated her mech's smoke projectors, filling the arena with obscuring fog. Another diversion to buy precious seconds. 90% complete. The pounding on the sealed door intensified. The guards had bypassed the power surge and were attempting to force entry. Metal groaned as they applied pressure to the compromised lock. 95% complete? Ray's fingers flew across the terminal, preparing the final override that would switch the arena's massive holographic displays from the staged battle to the laboratory footage. 99% complete. The door burst open. 4 Corvani guards rushed in, energy weapons raised. Ray drove his fist into the central control panel, triggering the override command just as the hacking module displayed 100% complete. The guards froze, their attention caught by the sudden change on every screen in the hub. The laboratory footage was now streaming to the arena displays and broadcasting across 3 star systems. Ray seized the moment of their distraction. He launched himself at the nearest guard, driving his shoulder into the Corvani's midsection. The guard's weapon discharged, missing Ray by inches and striking a secondary control panel in a shower of sparks. Chaos erupted in the cramped space as Ray engaged the guards in close-quarters combat. His months in the arena had taught him how to fight Corvani opponents. Aim for the joints, avoid the reinforced torso, watch for the tail. He disarmed one guard with a wrenching arm lock, then used the Corvani's own energy weapon to stun 2 others. The 4th guard backed away, hand on his communication device. "Security breach in Hub 7, the human!" Ray's flying kick caught the guard in the chest, silencing his transmission. All 4 Corvani lay incapacitated, but Ray knew more would come. He needed to move. Grabbing a guard's access card, he exited the hub and headed for the upper levels. According to the plan, he was to rendezvous with Sarissa once the broadcast was secured. But first, he had unfinished business. On the screens lining the corridor, Ray could see the pandemonium that had erupted in the arena. The massive displays showed irrefutable evidence of Vorax crimes, Corvani scientists performing experiments on conscious humans, failed hybrids being disposed of. Vorak himself supervising the extraction of genetic material. The crowd's bloodthirsty cheers had transformed into shocked silence, punctuated by outbursts of horror and anger. Security forces seemed frozen, uncertain whether to continue their pursuit of Sarissa or respond to the crowd's growing unrest. In his private box, Vorak stood rigid with fury, surrounded by hegemony officials whose expressions ranged from disgust to calculated neutrality. The arena master was shouting orders into a communication device, spittle flying from his scaled lips. Ray changed course. Instead of heading for the rendezvous point, he made for the executive level, where Vorak's private box was located. The time for hiding was over. He encountered surprisingly little resistance as he moved through the upper corridors. Most security personnel were either dealing with the chaos in the arena or responding to Sarissa's diversion. Those he did encounter were dispatched quickly. Ray was no longer just fighting for survival, but for justice. When he reached the executive level, he found the entrance to Vorak's private box, guarded by two elite Corvani warriors. They raised their weapons as he approached. "Stand down," Ray commanded in English, knowing their translators would convey his words. "Your master's crimes are exposed to 3 star systems. The hegemony has seen what happens here." The guards exchanged uncertain glances, but maintained their position. Ray didn't wait for them to decide. He charged forward, ducking beneath the first guard's energy blast and driving his shoulder into the Corvani's midsection. The second guard swung his weapon like a club, missing Ray's head by inches. Ray pivoted, caught the guard's arm, and used the Corvani's own momentum to slam him into the wall. Both guards crumpled to the floor, stunned but alive. Ray stepped over them and pressed his palm to the door scanner. It rejected his print, as expected. He examined the door, looking for weaknesses, finding none. He retrieved an energy weapon from one of the unconscious guards and adjusted its setting to maximum. He fired point blank at the door's control panel. The panel exploded in a shower of sparks, and the door's emergency protocol engaged, sliding it open to prevent occupants from being trapped. Ray stepped through the smoke into Vorak's private box. The arena master stood at the viewing window, his back to Ray, still shouting orders into his communicator. Around him, the hegemony officials had backed away, creating a circle of empty space. "Vorak!" Ray called. The Corvani whirled around, his scaled face contorted with rage. Recognition flashed in his crimson eyes, followed by a calculating coldness. "The human gladiator," Vorak sneered, his translator rendering his words in accented English. "Come to gloat? It matters not. My supporters in the hegemony will ensure this little exposure is contained." "Look around you," Ray replied, gesturing to the officials who were already distancing themselves from Vorak. "They've seen what you've done, what you've hidden beneath your arena. There's no containing this." Vorak's hand moved to his waist, drawing an ornate energy dagger, a ceremonial weapon, but deadly nonetheless. "Then I'll start damage control by eliminating you." He lunged forward with surprising speed, for one who had spent his life in politics rather than combat. Ray sidestepped, but the blade caught his arm, searing through skin with a hiss of burning flesh. Ray fought through the pain and tackled Vorak to the ground. The Corvani was stronger than he looked, his scaled hide tough against Ray's blows. They rolled across the luxurious floor of the private box, knocking over ornate furniture and sending refreshment trays flying. Vorak slashed again with his energy dagger, missing Ray's throat by millimeters. The weapon burned a gouge in the floor beside them. Ray caught Vorak's wrist and slammed it repeatedly against the edge of a fallen table until the dagger clattered from his grasp. Vorak hissed in pain and rage, his free hand clawing at Ray's face. With a final surge of strength, Ray pinned the arena master to the floor, one knee pressed against Vorak's chest, one hand restraining his wrists. "It's over," Ray said, breathing heavily. "Your experiments, your arena, your power, It's finished. Vorak's eyes darted to the hegemony officials who stood watching, then to the arena beyond the viewing window, where 40,000 Corvani were witnessing the unfolding drama on the holographic displays. The fight seemed to drain from him. His body went limp beneath Ray's hold. Ray hauled Vorak to his feet, keeping a firm grip on the Corvani's arm. He marched him to the viewing window, where the assembled crowd could see their arena master captured. An uneasy hush fell across the Colosseum as Corvani spectators registered the scene. Their feared and respected leader, subdued by a human gladiator, while images of horrific experiments continued to play on the massive displays. Below, on the arena floor, Sarissa's mech stood surrounded by security forces who had lowered their weapons, watching the screens in shock and dismay. The cockpit opened, and Sarissa emerged, standing tall atop her machine. "Citizens of Corvani Prime," her amplified voice echoed across the suddenly silent arena. "What you are witnessing is the truth that has been hidden from you. These atrocities have been committed in your name, beneath the entertainment you cheered for." She gestured to where Ray stood with Vorak. "The human you see there has shown more honor and courage than those who claim to lead us. Today marks the end of the arena. Today, we choose a different path." The silence lingered for a breathless moment. Then, from somewhere in the crowd, a single Corvani stood and raised a fist in salute. Another joined, then another. A ripple of acknowledgement spread through the stadium, not cheering, but a solemn recognition that change had come. Security forces on the arena floor lowered their weapons completely. Captain Bruthen, the elite guard commander, hesitated for a long moment, then stepped forward and bowed his head to Sarissa in a gesture of new allegiance. Ray felt a weight lift from his shoulders as he watched the scene unfold. The plan had worked. Vorak was exposed. The truth was out. Now came the hard part, rebuilding. The aftermath unfolded with the methodical precision of a well-coordinated operation. Across Corvani Prime, resistance cells emerged from hiding, seizing control of key facilities and communications hubs. Vorak's closest advisors were placed under arrest, while the hegemony diplomats withdrew to their ships, issuing hasty statements, distancing themselves from the unauthorized actions of a rogue administrator. Ray found himself in a temporary safe pavilion on the outskirts of the capital city, where Keleth had established the resistance headquarters. Medical drones tended to his injuries. The energy dagger wound on his arm, fresh bruises from his fight with the guards, and the accumulated damage of 3 months in the arena. Sarissa entered the pavilion, her military uniform exchanged for the simple garb of the resistance. She dismissed the medical drones with a gesture and took over the treatment of Ray's wounds herself. "The laboratories have been secured," she said as she applied regenerative gel to his arm. 317 humans were being held there. Most will recover, physically at least. "And Vorak?" Ray asked. "In custody. The Provisional Council will determine his fate." She paused, her fingers gentle against his skin. "The hegemony has withdrawn all official support and recalled their ambassadors. There will be sanctions, embargoes, difficult times ahead." Ray nodded slowly. "But necessary ones." Sarissa's crimson eyes met his. "Yes, necessary." She finished bandaging his arm and sat beside him on the medical cot. "What will you do now, Raymond Turner? Return to Earth?" The question hung between them, weighted with unspoken possibilities. Ray thought of Earth, the home he had dreamed of during those dark nights in his cell. It seemed distant now, almost abstract. 3 months ago, I would have sold my soul for a chance to see Earth again, he said quietly. Now, I'm not sure. There's work to be done here. Your people are facing a reckoning. Mine will want answers about what happened in those labs. Someone will need to bridge that divide, Sarissa observed. Someone who understands both sides. Ray felt her cool fingers intertwine with his. Someone like us, he said. A small smile touched her lips. From a pocket, she withdrew a small bouquet of delicate Corvani blossoms, pale blue with silver centers, native to this world. In our tradition, these are offered as a gesture of peace and new beginnings, she explained, placing them in his hand. Ray looked down at the alien flowers, then back to Sarissa's face. In her eyes, he saw not just the warrior who had surrendered to him in the arena, but a partner who had fought beside him for something greater than either of them. I accept, he said simply. Weeks passed, and Corvani society began the slow process of transformation. Under Keleth's leadership, a provisional council took control, shutting down all gladiatorial programs and dismantling the genetic experiments. Public opinion, initially shocked and divided, gradually coalesced around humanitarian reforms as the full extent of Vorax's crimes became known. The hegemony, while officially condemning the arena's practices, engaged in cautious diplomatic overtures. Trade embargoes were lifted incrementally as Corvani Prime demonstrated its commitment to change. Human colonies on frontier worlds received formal apologies, and in some cases, reparations. Ray found himself in an unexpected role: advisor to the Provisional Council on Human Affairs and liaison to Earth authorities. His military background and first-hand experience of both the arena and the resistance made him uniquely qualified to help navigate the complex path forward. Sarissa, meanwhile, had been appointed to lead the reform of Corvani military structures, rooting out those who had supported Vorax's regime and establishing new ethical protocols for engagement with other species. They worked separately much of the time, each bearing the heavy responsibility of rebuilding trust between their peoples. But in the quiet moments between official duties, they found their way back to each other, their bond deepening with each passing day. On one such evening, Ray stood on the veranda of a rebuilt government building, watching as the violet sun of Corvani Prime dipped toward the horizon. The city spread out below him, its spired architecture catching the fading light. Beautiful, despite the scars of recent upheaval. He sensed Sarissa's presence before he heard her approach, a shift in the air, the subtle scent that was uniquely hers. Beautiful, isn't it? She said, coming to stand beside him at the railing. Ray turned to look at her, taking in the way the sunset painted her blue skin with amber highlights, how her silver-white hair caught the light. This place, your world, it's beautiful, he agreed. But nothing's as beautiful as what we started together. Sarissa's hand found his on the railing. We built hope, she said softly. Now the real work begins. Ray nodded, understanding the truth of her words. What they had accomplished in the arena was just the beginning, a spark that had ignited change. The path ahead would be long and difficult, filled with setbacks and challenges as their two species learned to coexist as equals. But as the sun sank below the horizon, bathing them in the final glow of daylight, Ray felt a certainty that had been absent from his life for too long. Here, on this alien world, with this woman who had once been his enemy, he had found not just purpose, but a future worth fighting for. They stood together in comfortable silence as darkness fell, and the city lights came on, painting the skyline with a constellation of artificial stars. Not an ending, but a beginning, imperfect, uncertain, yet filled with possibility.